busking to performing in sold-out concert halls across Canada. And we bring you an unusual vision of Christmas by the Canadian artist Mary Pratt. I'll be back in a moment. They're not exactly a household name yet, but Moxy Fruvous, a group of young men in their 20s and early 30s who've been friends for years, are definitely making waves. A quasi-a cappella group, they're occasionally backed by an acoustic guitar, conga, or accordion. But despite their use of simple instrumentation, their feet are planted firmly in the present, and their music mixes whimsy and contemporary social satire. The Moxy Fruvous story sounds a little like a fairy tale. They met at high school in the theater department, but it was only a few years ago that they decided to form a band. And once they'd made that decision, they hit the streets, literally. They started busking. Street busking is one tough way to make a living, but Moxy Fruvous seemed to enjoy it. In fact, they say it really helped to develop their voices, and it may explain why they have adoring fans begging for encore after encore every time they appear in public. Moxy Fruvous take themes from many sources, from Karl Marx to Dr. Seuss. They'll not only make you think, they'll make you laugh. Here's Moxy Fruvous.
Blow and blow, all my troubles away. Blow and blow.
Moxy Fruvous spent months on the road last year, charming audiences from the Atlantic to the Yukon with their cheekiness and razor-sharp wit. With sold-out concerts, exploding popularity, and sales of over 40,000 copies of their homemade cassette, record companies came knocking on their door. It was a year full of surprises.
Tons of things have surprised us this year. Like being in this job has surprised us. Being able to make a living doing this has surprised us. The success of the cassette was a surprise. When we made that, we thought, wow, should we make 500 cassettes, or should we, go for the discount and go for the whole 1,000? And we made 1,000 and sold 32,000, I think, after that.
Because things have happened kind of quickly for us, people who've heard the name Moxy Fruvous or have seen us have been exposed to only one side of us. We may be a fun novelty pop group, but we'd like to think other things. We've got our political satire side, our whole musical theater interest that people see when they see a full show.
The three of us were students immediately prior to starting this career, and that was a really dramatic shift. Music is no longer always fun. It starts to become work at some point. It's also, when it's what you do as a living, you have to change sort of how you think of yourself, I think, as well. So that's been, for me, a real adjustment this year.
Sled, lead the first team into Dawson Mush.
The attention, for my liking, has definitely come too fast, too heavy, too fast. There's a bit of a feeling that there's a lot more gestation that could happen in the group before this kind of, Adrienne Clarkson special takes place and stuff. But that it is taking place, we're grateful, and we try to use it as best we can and keep on working on what we do.
Until Judgment Day.
Whitehorse, and the final leg of their tour. The guys take a break before heading home to Toronto and the recording studio. It's been a great year, but there's still work ahead.
There's a great deal of intra-band conversation about whether we're too spoiled. I don't think any of us think that we're stars or something, and for good reason, because we're not. Whitehorse has probably been, it's one of the places, certainly at this point in Canada, where people, until this weekend, didn't know us that well. And it's a weird thing. We just came off a 3-week tour of Southern Ontario and Montreal and Buffalo, where you know, we're playing 1,000-seat theaters, and so that are all sold out. So we get here, and it's like we have to do it all over again. We have to educate these people about Früvous and start from the beginning.
We'll try to handle that for you and make a better world so you can have kids too. Now the kids have held court, and we're glad to report that from now on we'll take orders from the young and the short. In fact, adults should only speak up as a resort when there's a grown-up problem through which one must sort. Trust the people for whom living is a sport. If you need us, we'll be backyard in our new tree fort. Okay,
Moxy Fruvous is a group with no central player. They combine mellifluous harmonies with politically charged lyrics that entertain and enlighten. And if people have a difficult time labeling them, well, that's just the way they like it.
I think our generation of musicians, I think people our age have been exposed to and are constantly exposed to a lot more sensory input in terms of music and art and media and culture and photos and all that kind of stuff than those who've gone before. Consequently, it all comes through. So our style is not one particular style, but it's sort of a postmodern collection of all the styles: musical theater, country, jazz, rock, pop, you name it. We tend to like it, and what we like, we do.
Well, you're really the opposite of Madonna, which is all about marketing and production. And production is on a huge scale, and we're talking mega theater. We're talking, you know, 21st century elephants in machines, that sort of stuff.
There's something that people really like about the acoustic, organic sense of what we're doing. In other
like
words,
human, you mean?
Well, human in the sense that they see us on stage, but whatever we're doing and whatever we're playing, they know that it would sound the same if we did it on a street corner or in their bedroom.
Organic.
Organic, yes. And
Thank you, Egon.
human-made fibers, yes. And that's, I think, partly what appeals to us, too, seeing that in other groups, you know, the not overproduced.
Yeah, it's homemade. It comes from the people that are involved. The magic comes from the four of us, not from not from our computer programmers.
Yeah.
You know?
And you can become enamored of the flaws of something, I think, which is part of, you know, which is what we enjoy about music and art, you know.
Screwing up.
Messing up and
Well, there's the opposite side of that, which is risk.
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's the
exactly.
excitement.
Yeah, and if there's no risk and the potential for failure, then it's not exciting.
Hi, we're Moxy Fruvous from Toronto, and my baby loves a bunch of authors.
Well, you should see my story reading, baby. You should hear the things that she says. She says, "Hon, drop dead. I'd rather go to bed with Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Cuddle up with Robertson Davies. Leave on the light for Jane Rule. I've been flirting with Pierre Burton. That Pierre Burton's no fool. I like to go out dancing. My baby loves a bunch of authors. My heart's a broken bleeding. Baby's just sitting there doing some reading. So I started watching some TV, played my new CD player too. She said, "Turn it off or I'll call the cops and I'll throw the book at you." All this arguing made me get dizzy. Called my doctor to come have a look. I said, "Doctor, hurry." He said,
"Don't worry, I'll be over when I'm finished my book."
I like to go out dancing. My baby loves a bunch of authors. We've been living in hovels, spending all our money on
Brand new novels.
So I got myself on a streetcar and it drove right into someone. You know, the driver said,
I was looking straight ahead.
but he was reading the Toronto Sun.
So
my honey and me go to a counselor to help figure out what we need. She said, "Well, get your love growing.
Going to some books I'd like you to read."
I like to go out dancing. My baby loves a bunch of authors. Lately we've had some friction, 'cause my baby's hooked on
Short works of fiction.
So we split and went to a party. Some friends my girl said she knew. But what a sight, 'cause it's author's night and the place looks like a who's who. Now I'm working on a picture
with Daniel Richler.
Who's a funny fella?
W.P. Kinsella.
Who brought the cat?
With Margaret Atwood.
Who needs a shave?
He's Robertson Davies.
I thought she started a food fight. Salmon moose all over the scene.
Yeah.
Spilled some dressing on Doris Lessing. These writer types are a scream. I I like to go out dancing. My baby loves a bunch of authors. We'll be together for ages.
Eating and sleeping and
Eating and sleeping and
Essen und sleeping und.
Turning pages.
yeah.
My Baby Loves an Author is a very cute song the first time you hear it, and you think, it's great, and you like to hear it again. And then you think, if they went a little bit further than that, they'd get something that would really click. And I think that's going to be the challenge for you, you know, salad dressing and Doris Lessing and, you know, all of that.
You're hitting it right on the head.
That's exactly what we think. I mean, that's that's a very perspicacious statement.
Thank you very much. I've earned my living this way sometimes.
In what sense do you mean a little bit farther, though?
Well,
A little
because
bit
what you've got,
sillier, or-
no, what you've got is you've got something that really makes an impact the first time you hear it. And I know from talking to you guys intensely for 12 minutes that you do know more about these authors than you're letting on. So rather than just using their names in a kind of funny, gimmicky kind of way, rhyming, you know, name dropping, you could actually make a comment about what Canadian literature is really all about.
Adrienne, there's an irreverence there,
Yeah.
and there's a silliness that we want
Yes, you
want to
would-
maintain.
of course you
and
would.
if we can balance that
Yeah.
with, I mean, there's sometimes
But I
we've
think-
written songs where, you know, we're looking for a rhyme. We did a song on the throne speech of the Ontario government, you know, and we were looking for a rhyme for Bob Ray, you know, and we decided to use Toffee Faye. This has always been a joke in the group because this was going to be performed on radio. It meant nothing, right? But we just thought it was hilarious. We want to use Toffee Faye, and that, you know, to keep that would be is part of what Früvous is, but to balance it with
If you're going to become really, really, really mega popular, it's not going to be just with people who happen to like political satire or are fans of the Royal Canadian Air Force.
We have to make the figurative leap from journalism to literature.
Well, the other thing, though, is when you're talking about to popularity, is that increasingly there's a popularity amongst young people who, quite in contradiction to what you're saying, you know, to a certain extent might not even get all the political satire and are liking us for the pop music. And so it's ironic that you should be saying what you're saying, because at the same time we're trying to balance just keeping that stuff in, because it's hard not to just appease screaming young people who really, you know, who maybe like just the groove or the you know, the fun melodies or something like that.
And it comes down to doing what excites you. Like we always have to go back to what
Adrienne, you mean.
exactly.
Thank you so much. Yes. What excites one?
Statements and the word
What
one
excites
will
one? Yes.
Yeah, and we're keen to talk to you later about certain things. But you have to. We do please a lot of constituencies, but you have to a certain extent, do what you want to hear, to do, and they will come to you. Because if you start pandering to, you know, if you start thinking, well, we have to do this and this, then you lose what makes it great.
Well, that'll
to
be in the
with.
music too.
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
basically that's the universal.
Royalty, Lord, it looked good on me. Buried in silk in the royal boudoir, or going nuclear free, or playing crokinole with the Princess of Monaco. Telling my jokes to the OPEC leaders, getting it all on video. Once I was the king of Spain. Now I eat humble pie. A palatial palace, that was my home. Now I eat humble pie.
Although the four have known each other since high school and have worked on other musical projects, it all came together for them as a group while busking on the streets of Toronto and a song called King of Spain.
When we first started busking, it wasn't long before we sort of looked around. We're all extroverted boys, and we looked around and saw these jugglers with fantastic outfits on and doing these theatrical things, and we kind of thought, well, we can do that, you know, or we can try and do that. So we turned up, you know, with more colorful things on, and all of a sudden the crowd, you know, it's an interesting way to begin a group like ours, because it's a really, we have to go out and get the person, bring them in, hold them, you know. It's not like
Take their money and let them
literally. I mean, it's not like playing in a theater. It's not like pay $15 and watch and we'll do whatever we do on stage. It's we have to hold you and entertain you to make money. And I can only hope that part of us stays. You know, I always have this fear that we're losing that sense, because now we're playing these sold-out theaters that we don't
we can't even go into the audience if we want because it's sold out and you know, packed right up to the stage. So it's a very different experience.
And
now.
we find ourselves at intermission trying to hold them.
Shaking them for money and stuff. Putting out a hat.
What you're really talking about was originally doing theater, that you would just, everything was done by you right from the start. Nobody knew who you were, you just had to hook them, you had to get the money, you had to do everything.
Exactly.
That's street theater.
Guerrilla theatrics.
It's laissez-faire, I don't even give a care. Let's make Friday part of
Those guerrilla theatrics evolved into producing a 6-song cassette. They designed their own cover jacket, distributing it to record stores, college radio stations, and literally flogging it at their own concerts.
We understand about the recession. We know all about the homeless rate. People cutting back on blue cheese dressing. All we want is that you buy our $6 tape.
The only thread that has been very consistent from the very beginning has been the fan base growing, has been, you know, this word of mouth, this growth where we keep playing shows and there's a bigger audience there. So people like this, you know. We don't know why, or, you know, maybe we can think of reasons, but people seem to like it. Because we've seen over the last few months complete turnarounds. I mean, you know, they will obviously go unnamed, but record company people who literally sent us notes saying, sure guys, thanks for, you know, here's your tape back, we don't even need to keep it, you know. And then 40,000 cassettes sold later, you know, you guys are the best, you know, the most exciting thing in the Canadian music industry, you know, we want to give you the biggest deal ever, we'll sign you, what, you know. It's quite humorous, you know, if nothing else, but it's also reflective of the fact that this is at least in the short term right now, is not a normal contemporary pop band.
As the helicopters whirred, drunk on the Lord in a nuclear dawn, my senses finally blurred. He was a rock. To the end, a solid reminder. Couldn't deny a friend. We lived in the noise of the sweet amber poison, beacon up the skirt of the end, and we drink. Two gnarly dudes in some records, much like plates of black food. We filled up our faces, saw some far places, stood on the room and the band played on as the Let's repose. He said we're like cows in the grass, rushing our flies, chaise lounging.
Does the world disturb you when you look at things that are happening and you think, how am I going to categorize what I'm going to satirize, considering all the awful things that are happening?
I think, personally, my response to that is that close to home is the best place to start for me, because I'm in contact with the madness of my immediate area. At the same time, we're blessed not to be troubled by things like mass famine and stuff like that here, but there are other human beings just like us who are going through that, so I'm sure that'll creep in there too, something of a larger global look at things.
Most of us, to a large extent, come from a middle class liberal society, but that in contrast to those who say, well, that de facto means that we can't be political. We haven't lived the, you know,
downtrodden.
I'm not an oppressed, you know, black worker in LA. In contrast, it you know, it says that if we recognize that that's our starting point, that that's who we are, that yes, we can be political, and that in fact, to a certain extent, we have a responsibility to be political, and in the way that we are. I mean, just because we're middle class or just because we're men doesn't mean that we can't be pro-choice or anti-Gulf War or you know, look for more AIDS funding or funding to culture, etc. And that's an important part of the politics of Moxy Fruvous.
The other way to do it could be like you start.
Yeah. I like it right in, because you don't have much time to establish it.
Let's start, and then we'll jump.
We're not doing the
We're not busking anymore. We don't need to be quite as brash and loud to get people's attention. Now we're going to make a record of music that we want people to listen to again and again and enjoy again and again. So there's a different approach, ever so slightly.
Yeah, give us some whack.
Yeah, it's really kicks, yeah.
The arrangement is pretty close to the structure.
The independent route for a band is definitely a good first step. It's an excellent way to learn about the industry, to retain control, to make a higher percentage of the monies than you would otherwise. But there comes a point where you want, there are things you can't do on your own. You know, you have to give over a bit of that control and power in order to take the next step as a band.
A tiny bit of Tad Lad. Oh. The return of Tad Lad.
Back. Oh.
Is it timing? Timing or?
A bit of both.
Bleach? All right.
We've been talking a lot this week about the record deal and the backlash that may ensue, because our image has been that we're underdogs, that we did this ourselves, and that we got this far by ourselves. And it's almost inevitable that if we step into the spotlight, if we put a bunch of money behind press and advertising and so on and try and sell a lot of records and stuff like that, there's going to be a backlash. It's just the nature of the game we're realizing.
You gotta fight for your right to party, so here we go.
Level, because this is going to be different.
Yep, at the end of the day, it's the chair I trust. The cushion is comfy and the works don't rust with a straight...
Well, in the short, long term then, making more records and making them successful, that's what you want to do?
Yeah, and the danger is not to get rigid, you know, not to rust up, but to keep all those avenues open, I think. You know, and not to define yourself, not to define ourselves as a band so that we say we're a rock band or we're a pop band or we're, you know, a musical theater group or something, but to leave all those open.
Yeah, to be a really open pop band. It totally is an evolving thing, you know? It's so interesting a line between premeditated, like this is our schedule for the next three months. This is kind of what we want to do, and things that just come up, and you know, we wouldn't have. If you had told us a year ago this is where we'd be and this is what had happened to us, we would have collapsed and left.
He took a trip, BJ's on a train, far, far away, but he'll be back again one rainy day. BJ don't cry no more, BJ don't cry no more. So there we have a story lived in person, told by proxy, but a mild-mannered mannequin every Thursday hit the Roxy. Tell there is on reflection, showed him his orthodoxy. Now he hikes the Himalayas, stuffs his letters full of moxie. Never had a girl to call his own. Found out but his heart's way too far from home. Says he takes it much too hard. Gives my regards, BJ. He says he takes it much too hard. Gives my regards, BJ. And now he's swinging in the yard. He's the junior bard with the Juilliard, BJ.
Moxy Fruvous is the best, yeah! Moxy Fruvous is wicked!
Moxy Fruvous is the best! The best! Moxy Fruvous was great. Man, it was awesome! It was the best! Yeah.
Number one!
Number one!
Life is Moxy as we speak. Life Fruvous.
Ding! I think it's ready.
Moxy Fruvous to me are the polka kings of the 90s.
Moxy Fruvous has signed a major 5-album record deal with Warner Music Canada, and it appears they've hung on to the creative control that's so important to them. The new deal allows them to produce the albums themselves, and it guarantees releases in the United States and the United Kingdom. Their latest CD is called Bargainville. It went gold within 2 weeks of its release. Look for it in your local record store. I'll be back in a moment.